When I grow up, I want to work for a woke company, like super woke.
When I grow up,
I want to be hired based on what I look like,
rather than my skills.
I want to be judged
By my political beliefs.
I want to get promoted
based on my chromosomes. When I grow up,
I want to be offended
by my coworkers.
and walk around the office
On eggshells.
and have my words policed.
By HR. Words like
Grandfather.
peanut gallery. Long time no see.
no can do.
When I grow up,
I want to be obsessed with emotional safety
and do workplace sensitivity training.
all day long. When I grow up, I want to climb the corporate ladder.
just by following the crowd.
I want to be a conformist.
I want to weaponize my pronouns. What are pronouns?
It's time to grow up and get back to work. Introducing the #1 woke-free job board in America, redballoon.work.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to Cross Politic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network.
I
Pastor
miss
Toby, Chuck Knox,
Oliver Anthony.
the water boy.
I should start off like with every Oliver Anthony song.
that was
Just
my
start off
favorite
with-
opening.
I need that new hook.
Man,
Yeah.
we got to talk about that.
Hey, health sharing is not as free as you might think it might be because the
free.
government.
Oh yeah, hooks.
It's not. It's the hooks. They want to get hooks
But
on
you
the
can't
people.
share? Okay, well.
Well, how are you paying for your health care and how's it working out for you? If it's working perfectly, great. If not, then listen closely because I have a solution for you. It's a solution that me and my family have actually used, a biblical solution. Samaritan Ministries is a community of Christians who pay one another's medical bills. Here's how it works. When a medical need arises, you choose the provider that's right for you. You have a say in the treatment you receive, even if it's a non-conventional approach. Your medical bills are shared with fellow members who then send checks to help cover those bills, and your need is covered also in prayer. It's affordable, and you can join anytime, even today. So learn more at SamaritanMinistries.org/crosspolitic. That's SamaritanMinistries.org/crosspolitic. We're really grateful to have with us today Mr. Joel Noble, Director of Public Policy at Samaritan Ministries International, where he's served since 2001. He directs the ministry's legislative program, advocating with federal and state governmental bodies. He's been married to his wife, Sarah, for 20 years, and they have 4 boys. Joel, thanks for joining us on Cross Politic.
I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So I know there's probably a lot that we need to cover today to find out really kind of the state of health care sharing programs and Samaritan Ministries in particular. But I know one of the things that we wanted to ask you about was a particular bill that was passed in Colorado last year that is really, in some ways, aimed at, I don't know if aimed at is the right word, but is hampering Samaritan Ministries and others like them in their ability to serve Christians in Colorado. Can you explain what that was all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we've done for more than a decade is make sure that states understand that we're not insurance because we're not. There's no transfer of risk. There's no reserves. And so what we've done in 31 states is clarify within their insurance code that we're not insurance and the insurance code doesn't apply to us. Unfortunately, Colorado, it took them 3 years to finally get this passed. And they did it under the guise of data collection. What they said was, this is just data collection. We want to understand healthcare sharing. We want to understand the presence in the state. And if it was just that, that might have been okay. We work with states. Idaho is a great example. Every year for the last, I believe, 4 years, the Idaho Department of Insurance reaches out to me and says, how many members do you have? And I tell them how many members we have in the state of Idaho, and that's the end of it. And they understand the presence of healthcare sharing in Samaritan in Idaho. And so, but what Colorado passed was a very draconian reporting model. And to the Department of Insurance, which was the first problem, because we're not insurance, but yet we have to report to the Department of Insurance all this info. And it'd be fine if it was just some basic info. But the long story short, what happened was we reported that first in December of last year. They rejected every single report from all the ministries. None of us passed. And and on the first try. So we had to resubmit that. And then we had to do it again in March, and we'll have to do it every March after that. Again, they rejected 100% of the submissions by the other ministries and us. And so I've said this before, in a previous life, I taught school for a little bit. If 100% of my class failed the test that I gave them, I might think, okay, maybe I don't have a great class. If they failed the second test, 100% of them, I'm really going to start looking at myself as the teacher. Something's wrong with me. And so they've not quite caught on to that. And the worst part of it all is they took that data, and part of the bill was that they had to produce an annual report. They took that and used it to misrepresent what healthcare sharing is.
Wow.
And the most egregious way was we had to report how much in bills was submitted, the total dollar amounts. And for Samaritan in Colorado is a little over 30 million in a calendar year is what members in Colorado submitted. But that is what they submit before discounts, before their responsibility. So that is the gross. And then they asked, well, how much was actually shared? That amount that's shared is after discounts. And just like insurance would be after a negotiated price. But yet when they put out the report, when they do interviews with the media, they present it as if Samaritan and other ministries are only sharing a small portion of what's submitted. And making it seem like we're not an option, we're not viable, we're not. And so it's just really unfortunate. And we warned about this in testimony. I warned about this over and over again in testimony, that the Department of Insurance really doesn't want us to exist, and they were going to misrepresent it, and it's exactly what happened.
Why is there a Department of Insurance? I didn't even know.
Well, because it's the Department of Education.
I didn't even know about this. There's a Department of Insurance. Idaho has one too. What?
Man.
You do. Your department's actually, I will give them a shout out. They're very, very kind to us. We work with them very closely. Dean Cameron's the commissioner there, and I will give him much due credit that he is very understanding that we're not insurance and that we don't come under his department. As a charity, we have oversight from the Attorney General of every state because we're a 501c3 ministry. And that's what we try to explain to these states, especially when they think that the Department of Insurance needs to oversee us. And the Department of Insurance oversees insurance, and they understand insurance, and they live in insurance. And that's part of the problem in Colorado is they just can't wrap their mind around a non-insurance entity. And they're trying to shove us into this mold of insurance and report on us that way. And it just does not work.
Are you appealing this, going up to the circuit or what?
Yeah. So the next step is we have a meeting with the sponsor of the bill. The House sponsor retired after she passed it. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like she retired the next day, but she retired at the end of that term. So there's no, appealing to her. On the Senate side, the senator is still there, and he, during this process, seemed to be more open to our appeals. However, just like a lot of bills, they didn't want it sent back to the House to be stalled. And so he went ahead and, pushed it in the Senate. We're meeting with him a week and a half, and then we're also meeting with the governor's staff. Our understanding is the governor, there's, things we probably wouldn't agree with, but he's also has a libertarian streak and does not like business being impeded in the state of Colorado. And so we think we might have somewhat of a sympathetic ear there in the governor also. So a couple of avenues we're taking, but it may require that, a suit does need to be filed. We're not quite to that point. We're going to, try to speak to the sponsors and the governor and see what happens.
I'm going to bundle two questions together and throw it at you here, Joel. So I still never left when you start talking about the collecting of data. That makes no sense to me. I don't understand why they need to collect data from you at all. All right, that's one. Help me understand that one. The other one is this. One of the things that I've learned ever since I've started paying more attention to politics is that we can almost see the trend in America, particularly amongst the liberal states, all starting first in Colorado and then going to other states after that. And so it seems like this is not something that would stay in Colorado. This is something that might spread because it's Colorado's kind of a test case for all a lot of it's particularly it's a test case for people to run their plays for other states. So those are the two questions. Take whichever one you want first.
Sure. Yeah. So we are concerned about it spreading, and it's already starting. We saw Hawaii last year take word for word the Colorado bill, with the exception of exception of Colorado statute. It was, instead of Colorado statute, XYZ, it was Hawaii statute XYZ, and fortunately that didn't gain any traction. Even a fairly democratic state like Hawaii, we had a couple friends there, and was able to speak to them. Didn't get any traction, but we're seeing, I believe, at least a draft in New Hampshire. Hopefully, we can deal with that ahead of it getting introduced. There was at least a draft in West Virginia, and we were able to speak to them pretty quickly, get that taken care of. But Hawaii was probably the most direct, copy of that, and fortunately that stopped. I would not be opposed to have to make a trip there, but at the same time, it's not as easy to get to. I'm here in Central Illinois, and so as much as I'd like to, it's not a state where you can just pop into very easily. So hopefully that doesn't come up again. So the second question on data collection, sometimes it is very innocent. Again, Idaho's a great example. So the states want to understand their uninsured population. And so since we're not insurance, our members are cash pay or self-pay. A lot of states don't want to have our members counted as their uninsured. It's, in a lot of ways, states don't like to have uninsured people. But I mean, there's other options, and it's not the end of the world to not have insurance, as tens of thousands of our members have found. But when the media and others are reporting on the amount of uninsured, the states want to be able to say, well, it's not truly uninsured. There is a cross section that has something, or they just don't want insurance, or they're with a healthcare sharing ministry, or they have something else.
It's political too, huh?
No.
Yeah, it is.
Joel,
and go ahead.
In Idaho, then would you consider the data sharing that you're doing with Idaho voluntary, or is it mandatory?
No, it's voluntary. Okay, and we voluntarily share data with a number of states when they've asked. So Wyoming has asked.
Yeah. So I mean, if it's in part, I can imagine. For example, I mean, I don't know how it's working in Idaho, but let's imagine, for example, that you've got conservatives in Idaho who are actually trying to explain, why they don't need more government funding and you don't need to have more welfare and those kind of things. That is a helpful data point to share, I would imagine.
They aren't doing that, though.
But, I know.
Likely.
It's always dangerous to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I guess also just having, I think there's a difference between a ministry voluntarily sharing and being demanded of. And it seems like, I'm curious, what are you thinking? I mean, so Samaritan Ministries, I mean, it's a Christian ministry. And so part of what I'm also concerned about is not just that industry that you're part of, the healthcare sharing ministry, that industry, but I'm also just concerned about religious ministries, Christian ministries. Yeah. And if they can demand data from you, then what stops them from demanding data from Christian schools or churches or other ministries?
Yeah. And that's really, I believe, if the, if this has to be taken to legal grounds, that's really going to be the basis of it. Mm-hmm. Not that, we're being asked to give data, about our numbers. It's things like the vendors that they're asking about. And I mean, as I'm sure you're well aware, we live in a cancel culture. So, if, someone sees that we're using XYZ printing and Colorado is a, as you know,
there was a cake baker there.
There was a cake baker there, yes.
Yeah.
And so, fortunately, Colorado's not doing well on forcing, folks to act outside of their religious principles.
Right.
But Colorado is at the forefront of that, and so that's a very good point. And that I think would be where the biggest concern would be is the religious liberty aspect of it. For sure.
Discover why more than 1 million people use the free Olive Tree Bible app as their go-to for reading, studying, and listening to God's Word. Start by downloading one of many free Bibles and start taking notes, highlighting verses, and bookmarking your favorite passages today. You can read at your own pace or choose from a large selection of reading plans, including the Bible Reading Challenge. That's our Bible Reading Challenge.
Yes.
It's about to kick off again, actually, next week. When you're ready to go deeper into your studies, Olive Tree is right there with a large selection of study Bibles, commentaries, and other helpful study resources available for purchase. There's also an extensive bookstore that allows you to build your digital library one book at a time. And Olive Tree's sync technology lets you pick up right where you left off.
That is sweet.
On your tablet, PC, or phone, and get right back to studying on another supported device. Now, here's the best part. You can start with the Olive Tree Essentials Bundle for free today. So go to olivetree.com/FLF. That's olivetree.com/FLF and download it today.
I just want to say too, like if you want to help Cross Politic and you can't become a Fight Laugh Feast Club member or a pub member, download their Olive Tree app. That's a huge help.
Olivetree.com/FLF.
All right, Joel, I have to ask you, but I think you might have answered my question, but there might be more that you want to add on to this. But I was wondering, why would it benefit a state to fight against a ministry like yours? It doesn't seem like it would benefit a state when you have a ministry that's saying, hey, let's have some form of humanism where we take care of people who
we're helping the uninsured, right?
We're literally helping the uninsured
Unbelievable.
pay their bills. Why would a state want to fight you guys?
Yeah. So I would say the charitable answer is they're concerned about bad actors. So those coming in that aren't established, like Samaritan, they don't have our track record, that aren't, good actors, and they're trying to protect the citizens. The pessimistic answer is Colorado is one of a few states with a public option. And if you're familiar with a public option it's a insurance option, insurance plan that's run by the state that competes in the marketplace with other insurance.
Yeah.
And so the way that works in Colorado is that it's supposed to bring down the premiums there. And if premiums don't come down, then they're forced down. So I guess, again, the pessimistic answer is that they would like to have, one option, the public option, and anything that takes folks away from that is a problem for them.
Wait, so maybe that sounds like a form of fascism. I mean, maybe you can't speak to that because you're in the middle of the fight. But I'm just gonna say, it just don't sound right to me.
No comment. No comment.
Hey,
is there a red dot on your forehead in the room right now?
When you put your own entity inside of it to try and control the market itself instead of it being free, you're manipulating the economy by doing that. That's not what you're supposed to be able to do.
Joel, I'll save you from having to answer that one. But I'm curious about. So we focused on this particular issue. That's a problem. You're working on that. Focused on Colorado. There's a few other states that are maybe thinking about trying it, and you've got to try to keep those fires from starting. What's the state though? More, what else is going on more broadly in terms of? I know you work federally as well as at state level. I know, like, when Obamacare was coming down a few years ago, that was kind of a threat to what you all are doing. But what's the big picture? I mean, can you just kind of give us a summary? Are there other threats that you're seeing, or are there any positive developments anywhere?
Yeah.
What else is going on?
Yeah, so there is positive. We were able to just this last year, just a few months ago, pass in Indiana a tax deduction, which means that our members are able to deduct the shares that they send to other members, just like you would an insurance premium. And so it's something that existed in Missouri for a number of years. We'd been working on trying to extend that to other states, and Indiana, we were successful there. So that's a great win there for our members. And then federally, we've been working on HSAs for a number of years. And if you're not familiar with an HSA, it's a tax sheltered savings account to use for medical expenses. Right. And so, for instance, you could put money in there, and if you had medical bills that were outside, if you had insurance outside of your insurance, then you'd be able to use that. And it's, again, tax sheltered. So it's pre-tax dollars. However, since we're not insurance, our members can't qualify to open an HSA. You have to have a high deductible insurance policy backing that up. And so for a number of years, that's been, we're working on getting that changed. So Representative Chip Roy of Texas and Senator Ted Cruz of Texas have a House version and a Senate version to extend that to healthcare sharing, so that our members would be able to set up a HSA without having to buy insurance in addition to be a member. And it would also allow them to pay healthcare sharing expenses, the shares that they send other members or the administrative fee they send to us out of their HSA. And there's some other features in there for direct primary care, which is another great free market solution. And it would also, raise the limit of what you contribute to an HSA. So Chip Roy and Ted Cruz federally, that's a great bill. We've reached out to our members in a few select districts, just asking them to talk to their rep about that, so that it's on the agenda for Ways and Means this fall when they return after the summer.
Joel, you've been doing this for 22 years? You started in 2001. What's been the biggest success you've seen in this industry since you've been doing this?
Yeah. So you mentioned the Affordable Care Act, they called Obamacare. It was incredibly providential. There was, obviously a lot of people lobbying on that, a lot of people working on that. And, we were in the middle of that, making sure that our members would still be able to continue since they didn't have insurance by getting an exemption. And so we were through some relationships on the state level that was friends with a U.S. senator. We were able to get a meeting, and they went ahead and put the exemption in one of the versions of the ACA. There was a number of different versions of the ACA before it finally got passed. And then the version that we had our exemption in got sent over to the House. And then Ted Kennedy passed away while I was in the House. And Scott Brown, if you remember the history, got elected. Yep. They couldn't send it back to the Senate because they would have filibustered. So the ACA that we know that got passed was the version that had our exemption in it of all the different versions. Goodness. And that was absolutely God. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's nothing I did or any other lobbyist, did, to achieve that. It was God's on that. So,
well, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Are there any other major threats out there right now other than this Colorado thing? I mean, anything else that you're seeing out there that you say, people be watching for this?
Yeah, I would say just any of the states, and we're able to tap them down so far that want to try to regulate us like insurance. That's usually the biggest threat, is they want to try to shove us into that insurance mold. And probably the biggest threat of that, there's a number of 7 states that require insurance to cover abortion. And that's something I talk about a lot as us being an island. So states like California or Maine or my state of Illinois, if you buy insurance, your insurance policy is paying for abortion.
Wow.
And so so when you send that premium in, I mean, it's, somewhat indirect, but your dollars are, going into a big pot, and part of that pot's going out to pay for an abortion. And so that's one of the big things I push in those states is that, we see Christians all the time, we stop buying Starbucks or we stop going to this store, during June because of, what's going on, and we boycott, these different places. But at the same time, people are writing an insurance premium check and turning around and paying for, abortion indirectly. So getting regulated like insurance would be, untenable in a number of states. I mean, and we would just simply not operate in that state. I mean, we would, we'd shut the door in that state before we'd, pay for the, abortion.
But it sounds like you guys are planning to fight as far as you can.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, even the Colorado law. I mean, obviously you're going personal first, appealing, just common sense, freedom, that kind of thing. But if those doors all slam and they're still requiring certain data reporting that really is not realistic, not right, not just. You're going to take them to court, and Lord willing, maybe in the same way that the Supreme Court had to slap Colorado down on the cake baker stuff, maybe you can win something even bigger in some ways. Yeah.
If that time comes, we're prepared to do that. And I mean, this may be the time. It's, fortunately, I think there's a lot of, things that are troubling in the U.S., but fortunately, the current, at least Supreme Court is, as far as we can tell, favorable towards religious freedom.
Right. And
so this may be, maybe the time that, God allows this to happen, and we have to take it that far.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, appreciate what you're doing, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. SamaritanMinistries.org. Support them because they support us, and be praying for them. That is, wow, what a fight. You think we're just doing medicine, but with so many other things you have to do. It's not just health sharing.
Yeah, maybe if you're in Colorado, reach out to some of these people.
That's right. Joel, thank you very much, sir.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it a lot.
Yes, sir. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until next week, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politic.
How do you choose who to trust? Doesn't it usually come down to personal connection? Then why do only 25% of people trust a real estate agent when our job is all about connection? Sounds like there's something missing. Here at Story Real Estate, we're looking for people with integrity and a willingness to serve others. When people get to know you in this career, they should discover a genuine and helpful person who can guide them through tough times. If that's you, join us today. I'm Chris Carpenter, the owner and founder of Story Real Estate. Click the Learn More button and let's see if we have a career you'll love.